The combat ethics dome shimmered under a lattice of holographic light. Rows of cadets from 20 different species filled the seats, their voices a blur of clicks, growls, and syllables. It smelled faintly of ozone, the air sharp with the metallic tang of artificial gravity fields. At the center of the circular arena stood a single human girl, small, pale, and still. Evelyn Drake's uniform was regulation black, tailored with surgical precision. Her boots were polished, her hair tied back. No insignia adorned her collar except a silver mark. Deathworld Exchange Cadet. It gleamed like a challenge. Across from her towered Tir'vak Rehl, his scaled shoulders flexing beneath his combat harness. 4 muscular arms crossed over his chest, his fanged grin stretching wide. The Zelkan cadet's scales shimmered green under the dome's light. His eyes, vertical slit and golden, glowed with smug amusement. "So this is what the humans send?" Tir'vak's voice rumbled, low and guttural, carrying easily through the amplifiers. "A fragile mammal. Do your bones break as easily as your pride?" The audience rippled with laughter, a mix of hissing tones and metallic chuckles. Evelyn didn't respond. She adjusted her gloves, gaze steady. Professor Lurath, a tall, translucent Therian, flicked his tendrils in disapproval. "Cadet Rehl, this is a debate, not a duel. Today's topic is restraint in combat." Tir'vak bowed mockingly. "Ah, yes, restraint. A word for those too weak to finish a fight." The laughter swelled again. Evelyn exhaled quietly. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, almost conversational. "Restraint isn't weakness. It's calculation." The room quieted slightly. Tir'vak tilted his head, feigning curiosity. "Calculation? From a species that still throws metal slugs instead of plasma? How quaint." Her eyes met his. "You measure progress by the size of your weapons. We measure it by the precision of our aim." The words cut cleaner than a blade. A few alien cadets stopped laughing. Tir'vak's grin faltered for half a breath before he recovered. Professor Lurath gestured toward the projection sphere hovering between them. "Cadet Drake, your statement?" Evelyn clasped her hands behind her back. "Humanity survived extinction dozens of times. By storms, by predators, by each other. We didn't evolve restraint because it was fashionable. We evolved it because every wrong move used to mean death." Her tone was even, but something beneath it resonated, a quiet, dangerous truth. Tir'vak snorted. "Deathworld myths. You boast about surviving your own planet as if it matters here. The galaxy has rules now, order, civilization. You humans are alive." Evelyn interrupted softly. "That's more than most of your Deathworld visitors can claim." A few alien cadets exchanged uneasy glances. Tir'vak's eyes narrowed. "You speak boldly, little mammal." "I speak truth," she said. "You mistake volume for strength." The dome fell silent. Even the hum of the gravity field seemed to still. Tir'vak's scales rippled in agitation, his claws tapping the floor. "Then prove your truth," he growled. "Combat Dome 7. Tomorrow. You and me." Professor Lurath started to intervene, but Evelyn raised a hand. "Not tomorrow," she said quietly. "Next week. I'll need time to study you." Tir'vak laughed, a booming reptilian sound that filled the hall. "Study me? You think I'm some specimen in a lab?" She gave the faintest smile. "Exactly." The laughter died before it could spread again. Something about the calm precision in her eyes turned it to silence. The corridors. Outside the dome were lined with banners representing the species of the Academy. Shimmering emblems of worlds Evelyn had only read about. She walked alone, the sound of her boots echoing off the polished floor. The alien cadets parted slightly as she passed, some curious, some cautious. A trio of Varkari students watched her from a corner, their mandibles clacking softly. "She's strange," one whispered. "Doesn't blink right, doesn't show fear." "She's human," another replied. "They say they train children with live ammunition." Evelyn didn't look back. She'd heard it all before. Every Deathworlder rumor carried a sliver of truth, but she didn't need to defend herself. Time would do that. When she reached her quarters, she entered silently. The lights adjusted to Earth standard. The room was Spartan, bed, desk, a single data tablet, and a small framed photograph of the blue sphere she once called home. She activated the holographic terminal, scrolling through combat records. Tir'vak Rehl, undefeated in 102 duels. Preferred style, dual blade strike, augmented with secondary arm grappling. Known weakness, arrogance. Her lips twitched into a brief, humorless smile. Predictable. The terminal's voice interface flickered on. Cadet Drake, shall I prepare tactical analysis? No, she said, turning off the display. Just observation logs. The system hummed softly, recording her calm breathing, the faint sound of fabric as she adjusted her gloves. She didn't rehearse combat stances or strategies. She simply watched, recordings of Tir'vak's matches looping before her eyes. Every roar, every strike, every laugh. 3 days later in the cafeteria, the rumors were everywhere. She refused to fight him. She's afraid. No human lasts a minute against a Zelkan. Evelyn sat at a corner table, eating quietly. Her fork scraped against the metal tray. Across the hall, Tir'vak basked in attention, surrounded by admiring cadets. His voice carried easily. She hides behind words, he declared. When she steps into the dome, she'll learn what it means to face a real species. A young Gen cadet leaned close to him. You think she'll actually show up? Oh, she'll come, Tir'vak said. They always come. Deathworlders pretend bravery, but when fear catches their scent... He stopped mid-sentence. Evelyn had risen from her seat and was walking toward him. The cafeteria fell into hushed expectation. She stopped a few paces away, eyes calm. You should be careful with predictions, Cadet Rehl. You might start believing them. Tir'vak grinned, lowering his head until his breath brushed her face. And you should be careful with arrogance. It doesn't suit your kind. I'm not arrogant, she said softly. I'm precise. He laughed again, loud, mocking, genuine. You talk like your words are weapons. They are, she said. Then she turned and walked away. He watched her go, scales rippling uneasily, though he didn't understand why. Something about her stillness unsettled him, like a predator that hadn't yet decided whether to strike. That night, the combat dome was empty except for the hum of the maintenance drones. Evelyn stood alone in the center, watching the ceiling panels flicker. She reached down, touched the polished floor, and felt the faint vibration of the gravity stabilizers. Strength isn't in the strike, she murmured. It's in the control before it. She straightened, breathing evenly, every muscle attuned to balance. Her training on Earth had been brutal. Silence in forests where every sound meant danger, nights spent listening to storms flattening cities. Compared to that, this dome was peaceful. Somewhere far above, alien cadets slept comfortably in gravity-calibrated beds. Evelyn smiled faintly. Peaceful places had always been the easiest to break. When dawn arrived, Tir'vak's laughter echoed again through the corridors, taunting and confident. Evelyn didn't answer. She didn't need to. She had learned everything she needed. And next week, when she stepped into the dome again, laughter would be replaced by something else entirely. Something quieter. Something permanent. The combat dome was silent when the announcement blared across the academy. Official duel between Cadet Evelyn Drake of Earth and Cadet Tir'vak Rehl of Zelka commences in 10 minutes. Every corridor emptied as cadets rushed toward the viewing decks. The air smelled faintly of tension, that charged metallic scent before a storm. The academy's instructors lined the upper galleries, observing protocols but saying little. No one expected the human to survive long. Inside the dome, the environment shimmered into being, a shifting battlefield programmed to simulate neutral gravity conflict. Fractured terrain floated weightlessly under bright kinetic lights, metallic fragments gliding through mid-air like drifting debris. Each movement stirred the atmosphere in silent ripples. Evelyn stood at the center, calm and unarmored except for the standard training suit. Tir'vak entered opposite her, blades glinting in all four hands. His scales glowed faintly, reflecting the plasma torches embedded in the arena walls. "You should have withdrawn," he rumbled, his breath forming a brief haze in the cold air. "It would have been merciful." Evelyn tilted her head slightly. Mercy and arrogance usually sound alike. A murmur rose from the audience chamber. The duel's countdown initiated, 5 seconds displayed in glowing digits overhead. Tir'vak's nostrils flared. Evelyn's pupils narrowed. 3, 2, 1. Engage. Tir'vak lunged forward, the floor cracking under his weight as he launched into partial zero gravity. His blades whistled through the air, arcing in coordinated sweeps. Evelyn didn't retreat. She pivoted. The motion was minimal, efficient. Her foot grazed the floor just enough to redirect momentum. His first strike cut nothing but air. The second came from behind, his secondary arm swinging fast. Evelyn dropped low, letting inertia carry him past her. She whispered almost to herself, "Predictable." The spectators gasped as she slid beneath him, one hand brushing the ground for balance. The movement was human, not graceful in the alien sense, but calculated, grounded in survival instincts. She didn't attack yet. She watched. Tir'vak roared in frustration. "You dance well for prey." "I'm not dancing," she said. "I'm measuring." He swung again. Metal clashed against the floor as his energy blades missed by inches. Evelyn's breathing remained steady, her gaze fixed. She was learning his rhythm, the slight hesitation before his right swing, the torque in his upper arm before a downward strike. Professor Lureth spoke quietly into his recorder in the observation booth. "Human reaction pattern. Adaptive. Minimal exertion, high precision." Beside him, a Kelrathi instructor muttered, "Or she's just lucky. Wait until he corners her." In the dome, the lights flickered as the gravity modulator shifted. The terrain rotated. Platforms spun in orbit. Tir'vak used the moment to his advantage, propelling himself upward and slamming down in a crushing strike. Evelyn sidestepped, barely moving, as the floor beneath her cracked open. The impact thundered through the dome, the sound echoing in metallic waves. He snarled, scales bristling. "Why don't you fight back?" She met his gaze. "Because I already know how this ends." Tir'vak laughed, a harsh, guttural bark. "Do you think this is some psychological game?" "Yes," she said simply. He charged again, roaring. This time she moved, one step forward inside his guard, close enough to feel the heat of his breath. Her hand touched the side of his weapon arm, fingers brushing along a nerve cluster she'd memorized from the anatomy database. A precise motion, nothing wasted. His arm spasmed. The blade slipped. He stumbled. For the first time, fear flickered behind his eyes. What did you—" "Pressure point," she murmured. "Human thing." He swung his remaining arms, wild now. She ducked the first, caught the second, and twisted, redirecting his mass into his own momentum. The Zelkin crashed into the levitating platform behind him, scattering sparks. The dome's sensors crackled with static. Several cadets leaned forward, wide-eyed. "Pause simulation!" Professor Lureth commanded, alarmed by the spike in kinetic energy. The system responded and then glitched. Gravity flickered. Lights dimmed. The holographic walls shimmered, colors collapsing into darkness. Tir'vak roared again, the sound blending with the mechanical hum. "You've broken the system!" Evelyn didn't move. Her voice carried softly through the blackness. "No, you did that when you underestimated me." Then, silence. Only faint static echoed in the speakers. When the dome's emergency lights returned, Tir'vak was gone. His weapons lay on the floor, twisted, smoking slightly as though shorted by an electrical surge. The audience erupted in confusion. "Where is he? System failure? Did she disintegrate him?" Evelyn stood motionless, her expression unreadable. A faint hum of residual energy circled her, dancing across the training floor like vapor trails. She blinked once, calmly. Professor Lureth rushed into the arena, scanning the sensors. "Drake, step back! We're reading energy displacement." Evelyn complied without argument. "Simulation anomaly," she said evenly. "Request debrief." Lureth's translucent tendrils flicked with agitation. "Where is Cadet Rehl?" She looked around slowly, then answered, "I don't know." Technicians swarmed the control panels, muttering. "No biometric trace." His comm signature terminated mid-frame. The Academy director arrived moments later, his robe trailing across the floor. "Explain what happened." Evelyn's response was precise. "He attacked. I defended. The system glitched, That's all? Yes, sir. No tremor in her voice, no triumph, no fear, just a statement of fact. The director studied her closely, but there was nothing in her expression to accuse. Above, the holographic replay flickered to life. The crowd fell silent as the recording played, Tir'vak lunging, Evelyn evading, her hand touching his arm, then static, the image dissolving into white light. His laughter cut off mid-sound. When the video ended, the silence was complete. Professor Lurath broke it first. The simulation logs show no weapon discharge, no environmental anomaly before the blackout. She didn't strike him. A whisper spread through the cadets like wind through dry grass. Then where did he go? Evelyn stood still, eyes focused on nothing. She didn't look at anyone. Permission to leave, sir. The director hesitated. Granted. She walked out calmly, boots echoing against the metal floor. As the dome door closed behind her, the murmur of fear grew louder. Outside, the corridor lights dimmed to evening mode. The silence there was heavier, not peaceful but watchful. Evelyn's reflection trailed alongside her in the glass walls, her posture steady. She stopped by the viewing window that overlooked Zethar 9 below, a swirl of blue mist and green continents. Her own face stared back faintly, framed by the distant stars. Her hand tightened slightly. He shouldn't have laughed, she whispered. Behind her, footsteps approached. Professor Lurath's translucent form appeared, faintly glowing. Drake, he said quietly, whatever happened in there, the Council will investigate. They'll need your cooperation. Of course, she replied. You understand what they think now. She nodded. That humans are dangerous. Are they wrong? She looked at him, her eyes calm but unreadable. We adapt. Sometimes that's mistaken for danger. He studied her a long moment before nodding. You may not realize it, but today changed how this academy sees your kind. I know, she said softly. That was the point. When she reached her quarters, the door closed behind her with a quiet hiss. She sat at the desk, opened her log, and began typing. Observation summary. Zelkon Cadet. Rehl. Uncontrolled aggression leads to tactical blindness. Emotional predictability confirmed. Outcome. Non-lethal resolution achieved through containment anomaly. Objective complete. She paused, her fingers resting on the pad. Containment anomaly. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. Outside her window, the stars drifted in silence. Somewhere in that silence, the faint echo of laughter seemed to dissolve, the sound of arrogance fading into nothing. Evelyn closed her terminal and whispered to the empty room. Next time, they'll think before they mock. Then she turned off the lights. The academy would talk for weeks. The footage would circulate quietly through restricted channels. Rumors would grow, each one stranger than the last. But only Evelyn knew what truly happened in those few seconds of darkness, and she had no intention of ever telling. The academy had never known silence like this. Corridors that once buzzed with overlapping voices now carried whispers that cut off when footsteps echoed. Even the humming of the artificial lights seemed subdued, as if the entire orbital station held its breath. The official report on Tir'vak Rehl's disappearance used cautious words: simulation error, energy feedback, pending inquiry, but no one believed them. Evelyn Drake had become a rumor that walked. She entered the central hall on the morning of the investigation, every step measured. Cadets parted before her without thinking. Their faces held curiosity mixed with something new, unease. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as she passed. At the hall's end, the tribunal chamber loomed, a glass-paneled circle overlooking the void. Inside waited 3 council members, the academy director, Professor Lurath, and an arbiter AI whose crystalline core pulsed like a heartbeat. Cadet Drake, the director began, voice formal but wary. For the record, this hearing addresses the events in Combat Dome 7. No accusation has been made, yet. Evelyn nodded. Understood. Professor Lurath leaned forward. You claim the simulation malfunctioned. Yet no other duel in the Academy's history has ever erased a participant completely. I've read the records, she replied. I noticed that too. The AI's voice filled the room, calm but cold. Analyzing biometric data. Your heart rate remained steady through the incident. Explain. I don't panic easily. Not even when a fellow cadet vanished before you? Her eyes flicked toward the glowing core. Especially then, the director sighed. Evelyn, you must realize how this looks. The Zelkan delegation is demanding answers. Some claim you eliminated Rehl. I didn't. But you did something, Lurath said softly. The system recorded a localized distortion around your position. A field pattern inconsistent with our simulator's power grid. Where did that come from? Evelyn hesitated only a moment. Adaptation, she said. Lurath frowned. Clarify. Humans evolve under stress. We don't plan it. We just respond. Maybe the system didn't understand the response. The director studied her silently. Do you mean to say you caused a spontaneous field reaction with your mind? No, sir. With understanding. No one spoke for several seconds. The AI's crystal dimmed, processing. Finally, the director said, We'll review the data further. For now, you are confined to observation quarters. Dismissed. Evelyn saluted and turned to leave. As the door slid shut behind her, Professor Lurath's voice followed her softly. They fear what they don't understand. Be careful which lessons you teach, Cadet. Her new quarters were small and windowless, a precaution. 2 guards stationed outside never spoke to her. She didn't mind. Silence was easier than conversation built on suspicion. Inside, she replayed the Duel footage on her personal device. The static burst, the flash. The moment everything vanished. She froze the image and magnified the edges. Faint outlines appeared, electromagnetic feedback patterns. They weren't random. They looked shaped, like a fractal blooming from her point of contact with Tir'vak's arm. She whispered to herself, Energy follows intention. Her instructors had taught her about kinetic field balance, but this was different. Her body had reacted beyond training, instinct translating survival into physics. She hadn't destroyed him. She'd displaced him, somewhere. The thought unsettled her, though she didn't show it. By evening, the corridors outside her room pulsed with noise again. The rumor had spread beyond the academy. Galactic media labeled her the Deathworld anomaly. Interviews were requested. Access denied. The human embassy sent encrypted messages of concern, each one more diplomatic than sincere. Evelyn ignored them all. She had no interest in fame or fear. She wanted understanding. Professor Lurath visited after curfew, his translucent form barely fitting through the doorway. They'll close the file soon, he said quietly. They don't want the truth public. And the truth is? That you're dangerous, she gave a thin smile. Truth is, I adapted faster than they could record it. He tilted his head. Do you know what happened to Rehl? Yes, she said after a pause. He's not dead, just elsewhere. Lurath's tendrils fluttered uneasily. Explain elsewhere. I can't, not yet. But I think he saw something before he went. That's what frightens them. The professor nodded slowly. Your restraint in the dome, it wasn't mercy, was it? It was efficiency, she answered. Mercy is emotional. Efficiency is mathematical. He studied her for a moment longer, then said softly, Whatever you are, Evelyn Drake, you've reminded this galaxy why humans were always underestimated. When he left, she sat in the dim light until dawn. Her reflection in the metallic wall looked older, colder, someone carved by understanding too deep for comfort. The next day, the Academy reopened its training domes. Cadets returned to routine, but no one challenged her. Even her name carried weight now. When she entered a room, conversation faded. When she passed, heads turned away. During meal hours, she ate alone as usual. Only one cadet, a young Avrixian with soft violet eyes, dared to speak. Is it true? The alien asked, voice tentative. That you made him disappear? Evelyn set down her utensil. Truth depends on perspective. Will you do it again? Only if I have to. The cadet swallowed and nodded quickly. I hope you never have to. So do I. She returned to her meal. The conversation ended there, but the whispers resumed. Fear had settled into the bones of the academy. Quiet, steady, irreversible. Weeks passed. The council cleared her of wrongdoing but placed restrictions on human applicants until further review. That phrasing amused her. Further review always meant never again. Humanity's place among the stars would be reconsidered now, not by diplomacy, but by caution. Late one night, as she walked the deserted observation deck, the stars glimmered beyond the glass, endless, indifferent. A faint hum filled the air, like an echo only she could hear. "Rehl," she whispered. For a heartbeat, the reflection beside her shimmered. A distorted silhouette flickered, tall and scaled, mouth open mid-laugh, then gone. Her breath caught. "Still laughing?" Silence answered. She placed her hand on the cold glass. "Lesson learned," she said quietly. "Next time, think before you mock what you don't understand." The reflection didn't return, but the hum lingered a moment longer before fading into the void. By the next rotation, a new batch of cadets arrived. The Academy's orientation banners hung proudly again, hiding the tension that still haunted its halls. Evelyn was assigned as a training assistant for basic combat ethics, irony not lost on anyone. During her first lecture, a young recruit whispered too loudly to his neighbor. "That's the human who erased the Zelkan." Evelyn heard it. She turned, her expression neutral but her eyes sharp enough to silence the room. She spoke without raising her voice. "Discipline begins with respect, and respect starts when you stop assuming what you don't understand." The room stayed quiet. She continued the lesson as if nothing happened. Later, as the cadets filed out, one lingered near the door. "Ma'am?" he asked hesitantly. "Is it true what they say? That humans don't fear anything?" Evelyn paused, looking down at him. "We fear plenty," she said. "We just don't let it make our choices." The cadet nodded slowly, understanding more than the words themselves. When he left, Evelyn stood alone in the quiet room. Through the window, the stars stretched infinite and cold, but she felt no distance in them. Humanity didn't need to be the largest or strongest in the galaxy. They only needed to be understood, or feared enough to be left alone. She gathered her datapad, powered down the lights, and whispered to the empty dome. He vanished mid-laugh because he never listened. And as the lights dimmed to darkness, a faint, almost imperceptible echo, half mechanical, half spectral, rippled through the air like distant laughter swallowed by silence. It faded quickly, leaving only calm. The Deathworld girl turned and walked away. The first whisper came 3 months after the duel. A technician in the power maintenance sector reported hearing rhythmic impacts inside the simulator's subgrid. 4 beats, pause, 4 beats again. The pattern matched the cadence of a Zelkan step. The recording vanished from the archive within hours. By then, Evelyn Drake had already earned a quiet promotion. Her new title, Human Liaison Instructor, placed her in a role that made half the faculty uncomfortable and the other half wary. She was teaching restraint and tactical awareness to species that considered humans the embodiment of unpredictability. The academy corridors looked the same. Polished metal, hovering signs, the faint hum of circulating oxygen. But the atmosphere had shifted. Alien cadets no longer mocked humanity. They studied them. Some did so out of respect, most out of fear. Evelyn entered the strategy hall early one morning, long before her students arrived. She moved with her usual calm precision, each step measured. The holographic panels lit automatically, displaying rotating maps of conflict simulations. "Lesson sequence 4, she ordered. The system obeyed, projecting a scenario, multi-species engagement under asymmetric gravity. The model populated with icons, human, Zelkan, Therian, Varkari. She watched silently as the simulation unfolded, her eyes tracking movement like a predator studying prey. "Pause," she said. The figures froze. She zoomed in on the human markers. Their formation held steady, minimal losses. Every movement deliberate. "They'll call it instinct," she murmured. "But it's just adaptation again." A voice behind her broke the quiet. "Still haunted by the dome?" She turned slightly. Professor Lurath hovered near the doorway, his translucent tendrils curling in the artificial light. "Not haunted," she said. "Curious." He drifted closer. "You know they've sealed Dome 7 permanently. Too many anomalies. I know. The Zelkin delegation still demands closure. Their military called him a national hero martyred by a human weapon. Evelyn's jaw tightened. I'm no weapon. Lurath's gaze softened. Maybe not. But symbols rarely get to decide what they are. She looked back at the frozen hologram. They should have left the dome alone. He hesitated. Why? Because the system still remembers him, she said quietly. That night, she returned to the sealed dome. Her access code shouldn't have worked, but it did. The air inside was colder, thinner. The arena lights flickered irregularly, casting long shadows across the metallic floor. Dust. Motes floated in artificial gravity pockets like drifting stars. She walked to the center, the bow, same spot where Tir'vak had stood laughing, before the world went dark. She stopped there, eyes half closed, listening. The hum beneath the floor was faint but present, a residual pulse from the simulator's buried energy grid. She knelt and placed her hand flat against the surface. The vibration was rhythmic, deliberate. 4 beats. Pause. 4 beats again. Her pulse quickened. Rehl, she whispered. The air shimmered faintly above the spot. Static crawled across her skin. For a moment, the outline of something massive flickered, translucent, distorted. A scaled arm, claws extended, mouth open mid-roar. And then nothing. She stood, breathing slowly to calm the adrenaline surge. You're trying to come back, she said softly, but you're still bound to the feedback loop. She turned toward the console panel embedded in the wall. Most systems were disabled, but manual overrides still functioned. She accessed the diagnostic logs. Lines of alien code scrolled across the interface. Energy readings fluctuated erratically, concentrated at the coordinates where Rehl vanished. It wasn't a death point. It was a stasis point. A thought struck her, cold and absolute. The duel didn't end. It's still running. The next morning, she met with Lurath privately. He's not gone, she said without preamble. The professor regarded her warily. You're certain? The simulation loop never terminated. The system logs show continuous low-level power drain, exactly where he vanished. Lurath's glow dimmed. If you're right, then he's trapped between layers of the virtual matrix. He's aware, she said. He's been trying to reach out. That's impossible, Lurath said, though his voice betrayed uncertainty. Evelyn leaned forward. Nothing's impossible for a Deathworlder, remember? He flinched slightly at the echo of her own reputation used like a blade. What do you intend to do? I'm going back in, he recoiled. That's madness. The field anomaly could destroy you. It didn't destroy him. You don't even know if what's left is him. Evelyn's eyes met his, steady and human. Then I'll find out. That night she entered the dome again. The door sealed behind her with a hiss. The power readings on the control panels surged as she activated the neural interface manually. Blue light filled the arena, humming low, deep like a heartbeat. She removed her gloves and stepped onto the activation pad. Initiate manual immersion, sequence lock Drake Alpha 7. The system hesitated before acknowledging access granted. Warning. Field instability detected. I know, she whispered, and stepped forward. The world fractured. She felt her body stretch and compress all at once. The arena melted into static, then reformed into a dark expanse, a field of suspended metallic shards floating in black nothingness. And standing there, distorted but solidifying, was Tir'vak Rehl. He looked almost alive, body flickering like a half-rendered projection, eyes burning gold. His voice carried through the static. You came. I had to. You sent me here, he growled, stepping closer, each movement rippling the air. You laughed at something you didn't understand, she replied evenly. The system responded to intent. Mine was restraint. Yours was violence. It mirrored us. He glared, confusion and fury twisting his expression. You trapped me. I contained you. There's a difference. Release me, human. She shook her head. You're not ready. You'd tear this place apart the moment you returned. He lunged forward, claws slashing. She sidestepped instinctively, motion fluid even in the unreal gravity. His strike cut through the air, leaving trails of light. "You can't win here," she said. "This place obeys control, not rage." He swung again, roaring. The world rippled around him, destabilizing. Evelyn extended a hand. "Stop. You're collapsing the field." His movements slowed, the distortion flickering violently. "Why help me now?" "Because you were never my enemy. You were my lesson." The static intensified. His image fractured into 1,000 shards of light. For a heartbeat, he looked almost peaceful. Then he was gone. Evelyn woke on the dome floor, gasping. The lights were dim, the hum fading. Her suit sensors flashed red with overload warnings. She pulled herself upright slowly. The console displayed one line of text. Simulation loop terminated. All data restored. She stood there for a long time, heart steady, expression unreadable. Lurath arrived minutes later, flanked by technicians. "What happened?" She looked at him. "Closure. Is he?" "Gone," she said. "Completely this time." He nodded, though the answer seemed to weigh on him. "You understand what you've done? You'll be remembered for this. Maybe feared again." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Fear is temporary. Understanding lasts longer." Weeks later, she stood once more in the viewing deck above Zethar 9. The planet's surface glowed beneath the distant sun. Her reflection watched her quietly, a woman whose calm had unsettled an empire. A voice broke the stillness. A young cadet hesitant. "Instructor Drake, they say you faced a Zelkin and survived the impossible." "I did." "Is it true he vanished because of something you did?" Evelyn turned toward him. "No," she said softly. "He vanished because of what we both were. Proof that arrogance always finds its own void." The cadet said nothing more. When he left, she faced the glass again. Somewhere out there, she thought, the universe had learned a new kind of caution. She breathed in, slow and calm. The Deathworld girl had taught the galaxy its most valuable lesson. That power wasn't in domination or destruction. It was in the quiet mastery of both, and for the first time since the duel, she allowed herself a rare human smile.